Michael, what's going on in San Jose?
Sure. Well, I can't give as much detail as my colleagues here because in part because I'm working on the general plan, so I know things very generally and not as specifically. I think generally, San Jose, I mean, of course, it was, this whole area was the Valley of Heart's Delight one time. That was one phase, it was agricultural. Then after World War II, we went into a phase of becoming like what I call the Sunset Living community out of the Sunset Living magazine. And it was, you know, track houses, 8,000 square foot lots, barbecues in the backyard, 2-car garage, 2-bath, 3-bedroom. That's very much what San Jose was. And most of San Jose and much of the South Bay was developed like that. And where San Jose has been going over the last 15 years and is continuing to go is to grow up. It's starting to become more urban. And the land that's available to build your typical single-family product is almost gone. There's not much of it left. And if you go to Evergreen, that's one of the last big areas of land that for typical large-scale suburban development. I think there's room for 25 more housing units in Evergreen. So it's pretty much built out. So this is kind of maybe, I'll try not to get into the next question, but so what's happening? Well, really what's happening is we're starting to see denser projects. For example, let me just find this really quick. We did this report, which you've seen on development trends in San Jose and what's been happening. And so, your typical single-family house in maybe Cupertino or West San Jose is generally about 8,000 square feet. That's about 6,000 square feet, which is about 8 dwelling units to the acre. Very common type of development typology. In 2007, the average weighted density of projects is now at over 60 dwelling units to the acre. So the type of development we're seeing now is much denser. On the extreme, you have the high-rise towers being built downtown. They're like 21, 23 stories. And there's one of them's done. I think 3 more are going to be completed very soon. They're very high-end. So that's on the extreme. But even outside in the neighborhoods, out in the rest of San Jose, you're starting to, the typical housing product now is, of course, many of you know this, is a detached townhouse or an attached townhouse. We're starting to see mixed-use development. It used to be that you'd have to drag developers over, the hot coals to get them to build something that's mixed use, but there's actually a project coming in where they're proposing that. People are looking for, land that in the past was forgotten is now people are starting to propose things. For example, on the Alameda, which is just west of downtown, there's developers that are proposing relatively high-density condominium projects with ground floor retail on the Alameda. And get this, it's on a 10,000 square foot lot. 10 to 12,000, it's not a very big lot. And even more amazing, these projects have car elevators to make it work. So you drive in and you put your car in an elevator and it scoots up or down. So the money, these kind of projects can be sold for enough money that the developer has figured out, hey, I can actually afford to do a car elevator and make some money. So that's really what we're seeing in terms of the other issue I think is San Jose. One of the challenges we have is it sounds like some of you have a lot of retail and some have grocery stores, and we'd like to get that part of the Valley Fair Mall from Santa Clara. Even though we have most of it, we just see that. I guess the money if the cash where the cash registers are located, that's the city, you get that money. So we want the cash registers to be in Santa Clara. Products can be in Santa Clara. Anyway, so we do have a lot of challenges. We don't have much land left. Gilroy has all those outlet malls. We have a lot of challenges in terms of finding big amounts of land for retail. And as you remember from your days at the City of San Jose, we need retail. We have leakage. We have a lot of retail. People are shopping in other cities. So one big project is happening that you may have read about is the Lowe's project on the old IBM property on Monterey Highway. That's a big one. In terms of housing development, a kind of a typical one would be the K&B project, which is at the old Del Monte Cannery next to the railroad station. It's for sale. It's a mix of 4-story condos and townhomes and that sort of thing. So that, I think, in a nutshell, kind of summarizes where San Jose is going. Oh, one other thing I should mention is industrial conversion is a big one. It was pretty incredible, actually, that, you know, and I think this happened in Santa Clara by the Santa Clara County, the Santa Clara City Caltrain station, where there was developers coming in and they were tearing down concrete tilt-up office buildings that were used by high-tech clients. And, you know, these buildings were 10 or 15 years old, and they were already obsolete. There's such a hot demand for housing that people were just coming in there building housing. And there's been a lot of pressure to do that in San Jose. And as a matter of fact, not far from the K&B project, along the light rail, Zebrado has got permission to tear down a bunch of old industrial or office buildings and build housing next to the light rail station. But the city has now enacted a policy that says, whoa, 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 you know, we need to hold off on this conversion. And they've made it a lot harder to convert industrial land, which the reason being, which gets to a question down the line, is really that San Jose still is a veteran community. The other cities in this valley tend to have more jobs and employed residents. In San Jose, it's not that case. So we want to retain that land so that we can have jobs and we can have commercial and retail. So I think some of you have been reading in the paper that San Jose is not in the best fiscal shape right now. We're in the hole. It's not looking to change. We're trying to figure out how to get out of that hole. Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Mike. We can just hold off on the questions real quickly. Maybe go over to Fremont. So what's going on in Fremont?
Thank you. Thank you for having me here today to give you a brief update. You may have already received, it's a demographic sheet, so I won't go over that, but in the past few years, Fremont has dramatically grown and our demographics have changed, so it may be of interest to you. In regards to development projects, and I'll start off with retail first. Since 2004, Fremont has had approximately over 2 million square feet of new retail come online. So this is much needed retail that we had a void, and many of our residents were leaving the city to do their shopping. And the bulk of that has been at Civic Commons, which is at 880 and Auto Mall. And so that has been built out in 4 phases. The last phase now is being leased up. We're really excited to have Asian Pearl coming online. It's 14,000 square feet, so that'll be kind of our big banquet hall, a banquet facility, and large restaurant there. So we're excited with that. Other projects that are currently being built, we have one at Maury Avenue, which is at Maury near the I-80 on-ramp, if you're familiar with that area. It used to be a steakhouse formerly. Right now it's going to be a mix. We have a Starbucks pending there. It'll be a drive-through Starbucks. Our second one for the city, that'll be exciting, so people can get their caffeine and keep going. And then
shouldn't we mention that John Luke at GD Commercial is the leasing agent?
Represent, yes.
Yes.
So we're looking to add a mix of retailers there and eateries, and that'll be a good complement to that corner. Plaza Los Olivos, which is in our Mission San Jose area, along Mission Boulevard, that is going to be a nice project that kind of adds life to both sides of Mission Boulevard, and that is by Dutra Enterprises, and the anchors will be the Dutra offices as well as Prudential there. There'll be 2 stories, and again, represented by GD Commercial. He's keeping busy, or we're keeping him busy in Fremont. Future projects, something of note, which you probably have heard in the news recently, is the Oakland A's Ballpark Village. That'll be out in Auto Mall. And right now that is moving along in the process. The applicant is submitting information as they're required to. We're about halfway in the EIR process. So a lot still has to go on, but because of the scope of the project and the magnitude, a lot does have to go in to be sure that this is a good fit and good project for the city. And the proposal includes a 32,000 seat stadium. So much smaller, that's the new model, to have smaller seating to make it seem very full on game days. That would also include about over 500,000 square feet of retail. So this would be somewhat of a mixed use project there, and about 3,000 housing units. So again, housing the retail and the ballpark to create all the synergy. What they want to do is to make sure it's activated throughout the year and not just standing alone by itself as a stadium. And that currently that proposal would also include an elementary school because of the housing there. Another project is the base